Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt responsible for the energy there? Someone is upset and suddenly you feel guilty. Someone is disappointed and you think it's your fault. Someone reacts with anger and you instantly start questioning yourself. What did I do wrong? If that sounds familiar, let me tell you something that could change your life. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. One of the greatest lessons you will ever learn in life is this: you are not responsible for how other people feel. Just as you are the owner of your emotions, they are the owners of theirs. This truth may sound simple, but it has the power to completely shift the way you see yourself, your relationships, and the world around you. Think about it. Every day you experience situations that trigger certain feelings. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you feel angry. A friend compliments you and you feel happy. A colleague criticizes your work and you feel disappointed. Now pause for a moment. Did any of these people actually put those emotions inside of you? No. They may have influenced your reaction, but the choice of how to process and hold on to that emotion was always yours. That's emotional ownership. Here's the problem: many of us are raised to believe we carry responsibility for other people's happiness, sadness, or disappointment. Maybe you grew up in an environment where keeping the peace was your job, where if someone got upset, you felt it was your fault. That pattern sticks with you as an adult. You apologize excessively, you over-explain yourself, you walk on eggshells trying to keep everyone comfortable, even when you've done nothing wrong. But here's the truth: you must embrace their emotions belong to them, not you. If someone chooses to be angry, offended, or sad because of something you said or did, especially when your intentions were honest and respectful, that choice is theirs. You can acknowledge it, you can empathize, but you cannot own it. When you try to take responsibility for another person's emotions, you place a weight on your shoulders that was never meant for you to carry. Imagine walking around with a heavy backpack filled with everyone else's anger, disappointment, jealousy, or insecurity. How far could you really go in life while carrying all of that? How free would you feel? Not very, because every step you take would be slowed down by burdens that don't belong to you. Emotional ownership means reminding yourself, I control my mind, my thoughts, my feelings. Others control theirs. This isn't about being cold, selfish, or careless. It's about recognizing the boundaries of responsibility. You can show kindness without being a savior. You can show empathy without being a prisoner to guilt. When you truly understand emotional ownership, your relationships transform. You stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. You stop trying to please everyone at the expense of your own well-being. You begin to speak your truth without the fear of constant rejection. You finally allow people the dignity of handling their own emotions. And here's the irony: when you stop carrying their feelings, you actually empower them. You give them space to grow, to reflect, and to develop emotional maturity of their own. There will be moments when someone tries to project their anger or sadness onto you. They might say things like, "You made me feel this way," or "It's your fault I'm upset." But remember, no one can make you feel something without your permission. They may trigger a thought, but it is always your interpretation of that thought that creates the feeling. If that's true for you, then it's true for them. So the next time guilt tries to whisper in your ear, remind yourself, I am responsible for my actions, but I am not responsible for how someone chooses to feel about them. That's the line of emotional ownership. Free yourself from carrying unnecessary baggage. Respect the boundaries of responsibility. Live with compassion, yes, but also with freedom. Because once you understand emotional ownership, you'll never again confuse kindness with control or empathy with slavery. You'll finally walk lighter, freer, and more confident in the truth that everyone is the captain of their own inner world. One of the biggest sources of stress in relationships, careers, and even family life is the confusion between influence and control. Too often, people believe they can control how others think, feel, or behave. They carry the weight of trying to fix everyone, to make everyone happy, to prevent every negative reaction. But here's the truth: you can influence people, but you can never fully control them. Think about it. You can pour your heart into a friendship and still, the other person might drift away. You can give your best at work, and still someone may criticize you. You can treat your family with kindness, and yet they may still misunderstand you. That's because influence has limits. You can inspire, encourage, or guide, but at the end of the day, the choices people make are their own. Control is an illusion. The more you try to control someone's feelings, the more frustrated you become. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. People are not machines. They are living, breathing beings with free will, unique personalities, and personal experiences. No matter how much you want them to think or feel a certain way, you cannot force their hearts. But here's the good news: influence is powerful enough. Influence means planting seeds. It means leading by example. It means showing love, respect, and integrity without demanding the outcome. You don't have to control someone to inspire them. You don't have to manipulate them to make an impact. Influence is about shining your light and letting others decide if they want to be guided by it. Let's take an example. Imagine a leader in the workplace. A controlling leader tries to dictate every move, micromanage every detail, and punish every mistake. That kind of environment suffocates creativity, destroys trust, and creates resentment. Now imagine an influential leader. They cast a vision, they lead by example, they encourage growth, they give feedback without crushing spirits. People under this kind of leadership thrive not because they are forced to, but because they are inspired to. The same principle applies to personal relationships. A controlling partner might demand constant reassurance, try to dictate behavior, or insist on molding their loved one into an image of perfection. That relationship will always feel heavy, restrictive, and exhausting, but an influential partner loves authentically, supports without strings attached, and allows the other person to grow at their own pace. That relationship flourishes because it breathes freedom, not fear. Understanding the difference between influence and control also brings you peace. When you stop trying to control outcomes, you release unnecessary guilt and anxiety. You no longer take it personally when someone doesn't respond the way you hoped. You realize, I gave my best, I showed love, honesty, and integrity. What they choose to do with it is not mine to carry. That mindset frees you from endless worry and frustration. And here's something powerful to remember. The people who truly change the world are not those who control others, but those who influence them. Think of great leaders, teachers, mentors, or even family members who impacted your life. They didn't force you to think a certain way, they inspired you. Their influence stayed with you because it was genuine, not because it was imposed. So today, stop wasting your energy trying to control people's emotions, actions, or thoughts. Focus on what you can influence: your words, your actions, your energy, your consistency. Let your character be your greatest tool of influence, and then release the outcome. Some will reject it, some will misunderstand it, but those who are meant to receive it will be transformed by it. How many times in your life have you said the words, "I'm sorry," when you didn't actually need to? Maybe someone bumped into you and you apologized. Maybe you shared your opinion and the other person disagreed and you immediately said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to upset you." Maybe you made a perfectly normal request, like asking for help, but then followed it with, "Sorry for bothering you." This habit of over-apologizing is far more common than most people realize, and it comes from a dangerous misunderstanding that you are somehow responsible for everyone else's comfort, happiness, and emotional stability. But here's the truth: you are not. Apologies have meaning when they are rooted in real responsibility. If you hurt someone intentionally, if you broke a promise, if you acted out of anger or selfishness, yes, you should absolutely apologize. That kind of "I'm sorry" is an act of accountability and healing. But when you apologize for simply existing, for having boundaries, for having feelings, or for being human, you are shrinking yourself. You are teaching the world that your voice, your needs, and your presence are an inconvenience. Think about what happens when you constantly say sorry. Every time those words leave your mouth unnecessarily, you send a silent message to yourself: my worth is less than yours, my comfort is less important, my needs don't really matter. Over time, those little apologies chip away at your confidence. They train your mind to expect rejection. They condition you to avoid conflict, even when standing firm is the right thing to do. Why do so many people over-apologize? For some, it comes from childhood. Maybe you grew up in an environment where you had to keep the peace, where you were blamed for other people's emotions, or where you felt responsible for holding everything together. For others, it's about people pleasing. You don't want to upset anyone, so you apologize first to soften the blow, even when you've done nothing wrong. But here's what you must understand: unnecessary apologies don't actually create peace. They don't make people respect you more. In fact, they often have the opposite effect. When you apologize too much, people begin to see you as insecure, unsure, or even guilty of things you never did. Your words lose weight and your presence loses strength. The solution isn't to become arrogant or careless. It's not about refusing to apologize when you've truly made a mistake. It's about learning the difference between genuine accountability and self-erasure. Instead of saying, "Sorry I'm late," when traffic held you up, try saying, "Thank you for waiting." Instead of saying, "Sorry for asking," say, "I appreciate your help." Do you see the difference? One weakens you, the other communicates gratitude without shrinking your worth. Stopping the habit of over-apologizing is also about courage. It takes courage to stand in your truth and not immediately bend under someone else's reaction. It takes courage to say, "This is what I think," without following it up with an apology just because someone might disagree. It takes courage to set boundaries and hold them, even if others don't like it. Here's the freedom that comes when you stop over-apologizing. You begin to respect yourself more. You begin to realize that your presence is not a burden. It is a gift. Your thoughts, your time, your emotions, and your space have value. And when you treat them with value, others start to do the same. So the next time you feel those words, "I'm sorry," rising to your lips, pause, ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong, or am I just afraid of taking up space? If the answer is the latter, replace the apology with confidence. Replace it with gratitude. Replace it with truth. Remember this: your life is not meant to be a constant apology. You are not here to beg for permission to exist. You are here to stand tall, to walk in confidence, and to know that your worth is not measured by how small you can make yourself to keep others comfortable. If there's one word that protects your peace, preserves your energy, and strengthens your relationships, it's this: boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are fences that protect the garden of your soul. They define where you end and where another person begins. Without boundaries, you become vulnerable to being drained, manipulated, or even blamed for things that are not your responsibility. So many people struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with selfishness. They think saying no means they are being unkind, or that protecting their time means they don't care about others. But here's the truth: boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are healthy love in action. They allow you to show compassion without burning yourself out. They allow you to care without carrying what doesn't belong to you. Think of it this way: your phone needs to be charged to work. If you give away all your energy without limits, you become like a dead battery, useless to yourself and everyone else. Boundaries are the charger that keeps your life energized. Without them, you cannot thrive. Here's what boundaries look like in real life: saying, "I'm not available right now," instead of always saying yes to every request. Refusing to take responsibility for someone else's anger or sadness. Protecting your personal time, your rest, and your mental health without feeling guilty. Recognizing when someone is crossing a line and calmly asserting your needs. Notice something important: boundaries don't require aggression, anger, or harshness. A strong boundary can be spoken calmly and firmly. For example, if someone says, "You always make me angry," a boundary sounds like, "I understand you're upset, but your emotions are your responsibility, not mine." That's not rude, that's clarity. The absence of boundaries leads to resentment. Have you ever said yes to something when every fiber of your being wanted to say no? Maybe you agreed to help someone when you were exhausted, or you stayed silent when someone disrespected you. At first, you tell yourself it's not a big deal. But over time, the resentment builds. You start to feel drained, invisible, and even bitter. That's what happens when you live without boundaries. You betray yourself to keep others comfortable. But when you set boundaries, something powerful happens. You teach others how to treat you. You set the standard. You send a clear message: I respect myself and I expect you to respect me too. People who truly value you will honor your boundaries. Those who get angry at your boundaries are usually the ones who benefited from you having none. Boundaries are not just for other people, they're for you. They remind you of your own worth. They give you permission to rest, to say no, to prioritize your health, to protect your peace. Boundaries are how you reclaim your time, your energy, and your identity. Some people will test your limits. They will try to guilt you, shame you, or convince you that you are too much for wanting respect. That's when you must stand firm. A boundary is not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. It's about saying, "This is what I will and will not allow in my life," and then living by it. Here's the beauty of boundaries: they actually deepen love. When you have healthy boundaries, your yes becomes more meaningful because it comes from a place of willingness, not obligation. Your presence becomes more powerful because it's rooted in authenticity, not resentment. Your relationships grow stronger because they're built on mutual respect, not silent frustration. So remember this: boundaries are not barriers to love, they are bridges to healthier love. Boundaries are not walls of selfishness, they are doors of freedom. And boundaries are not about pushing people away, they're about protecting the best version of you so you can give to the world without losing yourself in the process. One of the most loving and respectful things you can ever do for another person is this: let them manage their own emotions. Too often we carry the false belief that we must protect others from their feelings, fix their problems, or rescue them from their struggles. But when you take responsibility for someone else's emotions, you don't just burden yourself, you rob them of growth. Think about it. Every challenge in your life has shaped you. The disappointments, the setbacks, the frustrations, those experiences forced you to learn resilience, patience, and wisdom. If someone had stepped in and carried all your struggles for you, you wouldn't be the person you are today. So why deny others that same chance to grow? When you allow people to own their emotions, you empower them. You give them the dignity of working through their feelings, facing their triggers, and building their own emotional muscles. Just like a trainer in the gym doesn't lift the weights for you but encourages you to push through. Your role in relationships is not to carry their emotional weight, it's to support them as they learn to carry it themselves. Now, some people confuse this with indifference. They think, if I don't take responsibility for their emotions, it means I don't care. That's not true at all. There's a big difference between support and savior. Support says, "I'm here with you, I believe in you, and I'll encourage you as you figure this out." Savior says, "You're not capable, so let me take over." One empowers, the other weakens. For example, imagine a friend is upset because of criticism they received. If you rush to say, "Don't worry, I'll fix it, I'll talk to them for you," you take away their chance to learn how to handle criticism with strength. But if you say, "I know this hurts, but I believe you're strong enough to handle it. I'm here to listen if you need to process," you give them both support and responsibility. The same applies in families. Parents who shield their children from every disappointment, who fix every problem, raise kids who struggle to manage life on their own. But parents who let their children feel failure, frustration, and responsibility raise strong, capable adults. Empowering someone to manage themselves is not about being cold, it's about preparing them for real life. Here's the truth: when you constantly take responsibility for someone else's emotions, you train them to rely on you instead of themselves. They never learn to self-regulate, they never discover their own strength. And over time, this creates dependency, resentment, and imbalance in relationships. But when you step back and allow them to feel, process, and overcome, you give them the greatest gift: confidence in their own resilience. Yes, it's uncomfortable to watch people you care about struggle. It hurts to see them sad, angry, or disappointed. But remember, growth often hides inside discomfort. When you allow them to sit in that discomfort, you are not abandoning them. You are standing beside them while they discover their own power. Think of the butterfly emerging from its cocoon. If you cut it open to help, The butterfly's wings will never grow strong enough to fly. The struggle is necessary. The effort is what develops the strength. And the same is true with people. You cannot carry them through every struggle. You must give them the space to grow their wings. So ask yourself, am I truly helping this person, or am I rescuing them out of my own discomfort? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let them manage their own emotions, not because you don't care, but because you care enough to let them grow. Empower others by believing in their strength. Empower others by not taking over their emotional work. Empower others by offering support without control. When you do this, not only will they rise stronger, but you will also find freedom from the burden of carrying emotions that were never yours to carry. Remember, real love doesn't weaken, it strengthens. Real support doesn't control, it empowers. And when you empower others to manage themselves, you create relationships built on respect, strength, and freedom. There's a powerful truth that many people overlook. When you release yourself from carrying everyone else's emotions, you don't just set yourself free, you set them free too. Your freedom becomes their freedom. Think about it. When you believe you are responsible for how others feel, you live in a constant state of fear and guilt. You edit your words so no one gets upset. You avoid hard conversations because you don't want to cause discomfort. You say yes when your heart is screaming no because you're afraid of disappointing someone. In the process, you lose your authenticity. You live a watered-down version of yourself. But here's what happens when you finally decide to let go of that burden. You start living with honesty, clarity, and courage. You stop apologizing for your truth. You stop carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. And in doing so, you create an atmosphere of freedom, not only for yourself but also for others. Why? Because when people see you living authentically without being controlled by guilt or manipulation, it gives them permission to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. Your honesty inspires honesty. Your boundaries show others that they too can have boundaries. When you stop trying to be responsible for everyone else's happiness, you teach them to take responsibility for their own. This is the beauty of freedom. It multiplies. When you let go of false responsibility, you no longer need to control others and you no longer allow others to control you. That dynamic creates healthier, more authentic relationships. Instead of connections built on guilt, pressure, or fear, you create connections built on respect, accountability, and love. Imagine a relationship where both people feel free to express themselves without fear of constant judgment or blame. Imagine a workplace where leaders trust their teams enough to give them space instead of micromanaging every move. Imagine a family where love is not defined by control but by mutual respect. That's what happens when freedom exists. It creates room for growth, for authenticity, for real connection. Now, some may resist this. When you stop carrying the responsibility for other people's emotions, certain individuals will try to guilt you. They'll say things like, "You don't care about me anymore," or "You've changed." And you know what? They're right. You have changed. You're no longer willing to be chained by responsibility that was never yours. You're choosing freedom. And though some may not like it, in the long run, even they benefit from it. Because instead of leaning on you for their emotional survival, they are pushed to develop strength within themselves. Think of it like this: if you constantly carry someone, they never learn to walk. But if you put them down, even if they stumble at first, eventually they find their legs. Your freedom gives them the space to grow into their own. And let's not forget the gift it gives you. When you stop carrying emotional baggage that isn't yours, you feel lighter. You have more energy for your dreams, your passions, your calling. You can love people from a place of fullness rather than exhaustion. You can give freely because you are no longer drained. You can be present in relationships because you're no longer drowning in responsibility. So understand, this freedom is not selfish, it's generous. It blesses you and it blesses the people around you. Your freedom gives others permission to rise. Your freedom challenges others to grow. Your freedom inspires others to step into their own truth. The world doesn't need more people living in guilt, fear, or emotional chains. The world needs more people who live free so they can help others discover their own freedom. So release the burden, walk lighter, live authentically. Because when you choose freedom for yourself, you open the door for everyone else to step into theirs.